Love never feels enough, because the version of you that's trying to receive it was built in absence, not in truth. You weren't taught to accept love. You were taught to earn it, taught to chase it through performance, taught to beg for it in silence, taught to mold yourself into what they needed before you ever ask what you needed. So now when love knocks, you don't open the door. You panic. You question it. You sabotage it. You turn it into a riddle because your nervous system doesn't recognize safety. Only survival. And survival doesn't want peace. It wants control. It wants to know where they are, what they mean, whether it will last, whether it will hurt. You are not looking for love. You are looking for proof that love won't leave you like they did. So even when it's right in front of you, gentle, real, grounded, it feels wrong. It feels too quiet, too simple, too unfamiliar, because you've been conditioned to associate love with tension, with drama, with unpredictability. You call it chemistry, but it's trauma bonding. You call it passion, but it's just your wounds looking for a mirror. And so you're stuck, trapped in the cycle where love arrives, and you push it away with your doubt, then grieve it as if it abandoned you. But it didn't leave. You never let it in, because somewhere deep inside, you still don't believe you're worthy of love that stays. You want someone to hold you, but you don't know how to stay held. You want someone to see you, but your mask is too convincing. You want to be chosen, but you keep auditioning for a role you already own. This is the split between the self that craves intimacy and the self that fears being seen, between the self that aches for connection and the self that was built to protect the wound. Love doesn't feel enough when it's being poured into a version of you that was never meant to receive it in the first place, because that version was built in defense. Every wall you built to protect your heart became the reason nothing could reach it. Every person you tried to save was just a distraction from saving yourself. And every time you said yes to love that made you feel small, you told your soul it had to earn what was already yours. That is why love never feels enough, because the one place it's supposed to land, you still doesn't believe it's safe to be real. So you live in limbo, starving for connection, but terrified of closeness, craving devotion, but addicted to the high of distance. You want the warmth of love, but the moment it gets too quiet, too still, you search for the exit. Because stillness feels like exposure, and exposure means risk. To be truly loved, you'd have to drop the armor. You'd have to let go of control. You'd have to say, here I am, all of me, without the mask. And that is terrifying, because what if they see you, really see you, and walk away? So instead you choose the illusion of connection. You choose almost lovers. You choose unavailable hearts. You choose people who spark your survival, not your soul, because they validate the story you've carried your whole life. I am too much. I am not enough. I will be abandoned. And so you cling to the ache, not because you love the pain, but because it's the only kind of love your nervous system knows how to hold. But you're tired, aren't you? Tired of pretending the fire is passion when it's actually chaos. Tired of mistaking the chase for romance when it's really just repetition. Tired of performing worthiness to people who were never capable of seeing the real you. Because you know, deep down, love shouldn't feel like survival. It shouldn't feel like a test. It shouldn't feel like you're walking on glass, just to stay close to something that only cuts you. Love should feel like truth. Uncomfortable, sometimes yes, but not unsafe, not inconsistent, not confusing. So why doesn't love ever feel enough? Because you haven't been loving from your truth. You've been loving from your wound. And a wound, no matter how deep, cannot be filled by someone else's presence. It can only be healed when you choose to stop bleeding for people who didn't cause it and start tending to the version of you who still believes love has to hurt. It doesn't. Love doesn't have to feel like war, just because that's the only battlefield you've ever known. Real love is not a battlefield. It's a mirror. It doesn't arrive to fix you. It arrives to reveal you, to hold up every place where you're still hiding, to press gently against the wound and whisper, it's time. Time to stop chasing people who make you question your worth. Time to stop calling chaos your comfort zone. Time to stop mistaking adrenaline for affection. Because the truth is love that feels calm. Might not be boring. It might be healing. Love that feels predictable might not lack fire. It might lack drama. Love that doesn't trigger your survival response is not the wrong kind of love. It's the love your wound can't recognize. Yet, and here's the secret, the moment you stop expecting someone else to heal what happened to you in the past, you become the version of yourself who can actually receive what you've been asking for. Not with suspicion, not with self-sabotage, not with fear, but with presence, with a nervous system that no longer panics in peace, with a heart that no longer confuses love with longing, with a soul that no longer trades authenticity for attachment. This is the work, not to find better people, but to meet them with a better you. Not perfect, not without scars, but aware. Aware that you are no longer available for love that feels like convincing. Aware that you are no longer willing to lose your voice just to keep someone else close. Aware that the kind of love you want cannot reach the version of you that's still hiding behind your trauma. And so you rise. You rise into a new standard, a new embodiment, where you no longer try to be lovable. You just are. And in that stillness, in that rooted, radiant, unapologetic version of you, love doesn't feel like something you chase anymore. It feels like something that arrives. And when it does, you don't flinch. You don't question it. You don't shrink. You receive it. Because finally, you become the version of yourself. Who knows that love was always enough? It was just waiting for you to be present, to be whole, to be home within yourself before inviting anyone else to come in. Because here's the truth. No one told you. Love isn't a problem. You are not broken. You don't need to be better to deserve something real. You just need to be available in a way you've never dared to be before. Available without defenses. Available without control. Available without the expectation of pain. Because when you strip away the performance, when you finally sit with the silence of your own worth, when you stop needing someone else to make you feel like enough, love doesn't become harder to find. It becomes inevitable. And it's not loud. It's not cinematic. It doesn't knock down your door. It enters softly. When your door is open. When your heart is unguarded. When your soul isn't screaming for validation, but whispering in trust. That's when love feels like breath, not a battle. It's when their presence doesn't add pressure. It adds peace. It's when you no longer have to perform joy, because their presence deepens yours. It's when silence isn't a threat. It's a shared language. And it's when you finally realize you don't need love to be more. You just needed to stop being less. You needed to stop diluting your essence, to be digestible to people who never knew how to taste something real. You needed to stop twisting your shape to fit into hearts already full of fear. You needed to stop seeking a mirror in others and start becoming the reflection of the love you once thought you had to chase. Because now you see it. The real reason love never felt enough is because the version of you who was asking for it was never allowed to fully receive it. But now, as you are, now you don't flinch when someone says they love you. You don't shrink when someone stays. You don't crumble when peace finally comes, because you faced the storm. You've held the pain. You've kissed the wound, and you chose to stay. That choice, that presence, that wholeness, it's what makes love finally feel like enough. And from this moment forward, it always will. Because when love is no longer a lifeline, but a mirror of your wholeness, you stop clinging to it like oxygen. You start dancing with it like light. You don't need it to fix you. You don't need it to validate you. You don't need it to prove you're worthy. You know you are. Not because someone told you, but because you remembered in the silence, in the fire, in the long empty nights where no one called, where no one stayed, and you still chose to be with yourself. That memory, it's sacred. It's the moment you became the love you thought you had to find. And once you become it, everything changes. You don't rush into arms just to feel held. You wait for the kind of arms that match your stillness. You don't confuse being wanted with being respected. You don't confuse attention with commitment. You stop mistaking potential for partnership, because now you no longer need to be understood by someone else. To feel safe in your skin, now you speak with clarity. You choose with discernment. You leave when your peace is being asked to die for someone else's convenience. And when love truly arrives, it will not have to be chased. It will not have to be questioned. It will not have to convince you it's real, because you'll feel it. Not in your wounds, but in your knowing. A calm, a warmth, a resonance that says, I'm not here to complete you. I'm here because you are already complete. That is the kind of love that lasts. That is the kind of love that heals. But it doesn't start with them. It starts with you. It starts the moment you stop asking love to rescue you and start letting it reflect you. And when that happens, when the love outside of you finally matches the love inside of you, there will be no more questions. Only the answer your soul has been waiting for its entire life. You were always enough. And now you finally feel it. And once you feel it, you no longer tolerate love that tastes like doubt. You no longer beg for energy that drains you. You no longer collapse into people who can't even hold themselves. Because when the love inside of you is real, you don't let the outside shake it. Not even when they leave. Not even when it hurts. Not even when the past tries to crawl back with promises it never kept. You've seen too much now. Felt too much. Faced too much. To ever betray yourself again for the illusion of connection. And that is what makes you powerful. Because the world can take your job, your image, your status. But it cannot take the love you built inside. That kind of love is untouchable. It walks into rooms and shifts the temperature. It speaks without noise. It sees without needing proof. It loves not with attachment, but with presence. You don't fall for potential anymore. You rise in resonance. And when someone can meet you there, when they don't flinch at your depth, Don't fear your truth. Don't flee your fullness. You'll recognize them, not from a fantasy, but from a familiarity, a remembering, because the love you give yourself has already made space for them. And when they arrive, it won't feel like a rescue. It will feel like a return to the love you always deserved. The love that doesn't shrink or shatter. The love that doesn't spike your adrenaline. The love that stabilizes your soul. So stop asking why love has never been enough, and start asking, what part of me still believes I'm not? Because when you answer that, when you reclaim that, you will never again need love to fill the void, because there will be no more void, only overflow. And love from overflow is the kind that changes everything. Overflow is not loud. It doesn't chase. It doesn't need to prove itself in fireworks or in fragments. It walks into your life like something ancient, something earned, something that doesn't break the silence. It deepens it. And when you love from overflow, you don't shrink yourself to be chosen. You don't perform to be kept. You don't chase after ghosts and call it destiny. You simply are present, powerful, rooted in the knowing that you were never waiting to be enough. You were waiting to remember. That kind of remembrance rewrites everything. You stop attracting people who survive off your doubt. You stop engaging with energies that feed on your confusion. You stop loving from emptiness and start loving from embodiment. The kind of embodiment that turns love into devotion. The kind of devotion that turns pain into wisdom. The kind of wisdom that knows love has always been enough. It was never the absence of love that hurt you. It was the absence of your own alignment. The disconnect between who you truly are and who you believed you had to be to feel worthy. But now you return to your heart, to your voice, to your truth. And that truth doesn't settle. It doesn't negotiate your worth in someone else's hands. It doesn't trade your peace for fleeting presence. It chooses. And from this moment on, you choose love that holds you without hurting you. You choose love that speaks to your soul, not just your fear. You choose love that mirrors the work you've done, not the wounds you've tried to forget, because now love doesn't feel like a drug. It feels like a practice, a sacred rhythm of showing up, not because you need to be filled, but because you've become the kind of person who knows how to pour and never run dry. You never run dry because the well within you is no longer dug from desperation. It is carved from devotion. Devotion to the self you abandoned in every performance. Devotion to the soul you silenced for acceptance. Devotion to the truth that no relationship will ever complete you. If you enter it from emptiness, you are no longer a seeker of validation. You are the embodiment of value. So when love comes, and it will come, it will not demand a smaller version of you. It will not ask you to shrink your light so it can shine. It will not call your clarity intimidating or your standards too high. Because this time, love will see you clearly. Because you see you clearly. And what you see is sacred, not in a romanticized way, but in the way roots are sacred, in the way mountains are sacred, in the way silence is sacred when it is full of presence, not pain. You have become the sanctuary. You have become the fire. You have become the calm after the storm you once called love. And in that becoming, you no longer fear the loneliness of walking away from what no longer serves you. Because you'd rather be alone in truth then surrounded by people who require your self-betrayal. This is what it means to love from overflow. You do not need someone to make you feel whole. You invite someone to join your wholeness. You do not chase the idea of love. You create the space where love can land. And if it doesn't land, you don't collapse. You expand. You deepen. You honor the alignment more than the attention. And in that honoring, you call in something different, something cleaner, something clearer, a love that isn't loud, but lasts, because it is not fueled by fear. It is rooted in readiness. And now you are ready. Ready not in the way you once were, desperate, over-giving, hoping someone would finally notice the weight you carried with a smile. No, now you are ready in the way the sea is ready to meet the sky, in the way fire is ready to be respected, not tamed, in the way a throne waits not for a ruler, but for one who remembers their own name. You are no longer asking for someone to rescue you from your emptiness. You are standing in your fullness and saying, if you come, come correct, come clean, come whole. Because this time, your boundaries are not a fortress of fear. They are the framework of freedom. This time, your love is not a bargaining chip. It is a sacred currency. This time, you do not offer your heart to be fixed. You offer it to be met. And if they cannot meet you there, in the quiet, in the fire, in the truth, you bless them and you keep walking. Because now you understand you are not hard to love. You were just loving in places too shallow for your depth. You were giving too much of yourself to people who didn't have the capacity to hold anything real. But the real ones are coming. Not because you're hunting them down, but because you've become impossible to ignore. Your energy is clear. Your presence is potent. Your love is rooted. And that is magnetic, because now love no longer feels like something you reach for. It feels like something that recognizes you. So this is the ending, but not the end of love, the end of longing, the end of searching for yourself in someone else's gaze, the end of asking love to prove what you were afraid to believe. Because now, you know, love was never the missing piece. Presence was. Truth was. You were. And now that you've returned to yourself, fully, without apology, without permission, you will never again feel like love is lacking. Because the love you carry now, it does not chase. It does not ache. It does not vanish when tested. It stands. It stands in silence. It stands in chaos. It stands when no one claps for it, because it no longer performs. It simply is. You've become that love. And from this becoming, you no longer ask the world to complete you. You ask it to witness you. And those who can, they stay. Not because they fill the void, but because there is no void left to fill. Just presence. Just peace. Just the unwavering knowing that love is not something to earn. It's something to remember. And now you remember